Joining us right now, Monique Taylor is with us, Children's and Youth Services Critic for the Ontario NDP and, of course, MPP for Hamilton Mountain. NDP Children and Youth Services Critic is concerned about kids suffering abuse under the care of the Children's Aid Society and has spoke about that recently and now is on the line with us. Good afternoon, Monique. How are you today?
I'm good, Scott. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I read this letter. Tell us the story about this girl.
It's a horrific story, Scott. This young girl was taken from her drug-addicted mother at the age of 2 and given to a single man with a criminal record who sexually and physically abused her until she was able to get away from him at the age of 15. He also had her half-brother with her in the house, and both of them were malnourished and grossly underweight. It's an absolutely horrific story.
How would that happen? How would somebody who has a criminal record end up with the care? Is this a family member?
That's a really good question. How this happened? Well, he was a stepfather or a step-parent or something along that lines. But this is absolutely absurd that this can be happening in our province. At the age of 7, this child was removed from his home because of prostitutes and drug abuse in the home. She was then given back to this man. There was reports that this young woman found in her file at the age of 17 that there was complaints from a babysitter of, signs of sexual abuse, and that was at the age of 8. And at 15, she finally was able to break away from him. So, I mean, this story is gross. It is absolutely unbelievable that we are facing these things in Ontario. And why are we not? It's not us not. Why is the government not agreeing to move ahead with the Ombudsman oversight? That's my question. I put the letter out to Teresa Prusa, who is the Minister of Children and Youth Services, asking her to look into this file, find out how this happened, how are we going to stop this, and to agree to the Ombudsman oversight.
How common is this?
It's way too common. I mean, it's not. I mean, we've had reports of children who have been killed while in the care of Children's Aid. Jordan Dooley, I believe. Here we go. Jordan Highcamp. He was 5 weeks old under the care of the Children's Aid Society. Starved to death. Randall Dooley, 7 years old, beaten to death in 1998 by his foster, wherever he was but he was in the Children's Aid Society. Jeffrey Baldwin, 5 years old, murdered by his grandparents in the custody of the Children's Aid Society. Both had previous records of abuse. I mean, this is happening way too often. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need to have a full systemic review of how processes are being played out, and we need that oversight to stop this, to get to the heart of it right off the bat.
I have had many people involved with the Children's Aid Society on the show, and to hear it from that perspective, you wonder how this could happen, because it seems as if it's an environment which cares for the child first.
Oh, of course. I'm not. I would never even dream of talking bad about every single person who works in this society. I mean, we know that there's great people out there. I've met with the directors. I've met with people across this province, and there's some really great stories out there. But there's also the really bad stories, and we cannot ignore the bad stories just because of the good.
So where does this lack of accountability fall? Whose responsibility is this? I mean, obviously, in this case that you're speaking of, there was record that there was abuse of some sort in the household.
That's right.
So the complaints are being made. They're getting through. How come it gets to a point where it stops?
Well, and that's exactly what I want the minister to look into. I want to know how this has happened, why it happened, and how can we prevent it from happening again. With the Ombudsman oversight, he is a third-party exterior review. People will have somewhere to go. they'll have that extra voice, someone who doesn't have the connection to the Children's Aid Society. I mean, they talk about their oversights that are already in place, Child and Family Services Review Board, but they can't, they only deal with procedural issues. They don't investigate allegations of abuse and neglect. We have the court system, which they say is another form of oversight. But, I mean, that's not the way to resolve an issue. We're going to sit and wait to go into court for a child who's being abused. I doubt that. I received a letter back in my office. I believe I just received it in the last few days regarding the Ombudsman petitions that I have been submitting into the House from people across the province. And I finally received a letter back from the minister, and she says, quote, where is it? Let me see, right here. Let me see, I'm sorry, I just have to find the exact.
That's okay.
Well, I won't quote it, but the gist of it is that that the community that they're. Oh, I really want the words. That they're okay. Quote: Children's aid societies are accountable to the communities they serve. End of quote. How is that? How can you say that they're accountable to the communities they serve?
Why would they be afraid of an ombudsman looking at this?
Exactly. Do you know, if they're afraid of the ombudsman, then there's a problem. They should be looking at the ombudsman, knowing that there are systemic problems, and that if they are right in their actions, the ombudsman's going to clear them. There's just huge problems.
Obviously, you've examined this. Where is the lack of accountability? Where is the fault in this? Not so much the fault, but where are people falling through the cracks here? Where is the weakness? Can you identify that?
You know, it's such a huge system, and it's such an intertwined system that I don't even have those answers. And that's why I think the Ombudsman is that much more important.
So you think this needs to be refined greatly?
You know what I believe? I believe the whole system needs to be taken apart and built back from the ground up.
This sounds like one of those situations where not many people want to touch. So every government of the day comes in and they add another layer to this onion, and the core of the problem is never really reached.
And there's too many layers, because that causes another problem for the societies themselves, because workers are forced to be doing more paperwork than they are serving our children and our families. So that's a major problem, right? And they don't have the funding to increase the amount of workers to deal with the caseloads that they have. So like I said, it's a huge problem. The system really needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, and I think the societies across this province would agree with that.
Where are you on this? Where are we any closer to having this looked at independently?
I'll tell you, in the last session, I brought the bill forward, Bill 110, and when government prorogued, and it passed second reading for the first time in history, and NDP has been bringing this bill forward every single session. So for the first time in history, it passed second reading. Government prorogued, and it died on the order paper. And then I'm told through the Ombudsman office that he had had a chat. Andre Myron had a chat with Dalton McGuinty, and he was looking forward to giving him that power to have the oversight of the Children's Aid Society, and then to read further that Minister Perusa says that it's not one of their government's priorities. I don't know where their priorities are, Scott.
So Kathleen Wynne's priority is a little different than what Dalton's was on this.
I guess so, because that's what her minister has said. And that's really shameful. I mean, this is something that needs to happen. I don't know how many cases that we're going to have to talk about before they finally break and decide that this is something that needs to happen. And we really need to get to the root of it, because we need to make sure that children are safe in their home. They're not supposed to be in dangerous environments, especially when we're putting them there.
Website we can go to find out more about all of this, Monique?
www.moniquetaylor.ca, I think is my
It's like remembering your own cell number. You never use it.
I never check on my own website, unfortunately. But yeah, my website has information about my bill previously and about the bill coming up. I'm looking forward to bringing it for first reading next week again, and I will continue the battle.
Monique Taylor's been with us, Children and Youth Services Critic, Ontario NDP, and of course MPP for Hamilton Mountain. Monique, keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much, Scott.